In 1932, Hergé began working on a longer adventure, first titled Aventures de Tintin, Reporter en Extreme Orient. Translated, The Adventures of Tintin, Reporter in the Far East. For the release as an album, the story was split into two parts, Cigars of the Pharaoh and The Blue Lotus. This could be done very well, since the stories build on each other, but one story arc was completed with the end of Cigars of the Pharaoh. After the past adventures, Tintin enjoys some vacation in the form of a Mediterranean cruise. On the ship he meets Egyptologist Sophocles Sarcophagus, who is looking for the tomb of the pharaoh Kiosk. The Egyptologist invites Tintin to be his companion on the search. However, before the ship arrives in Port Said, Tintin is arrested for drug smuggling. Someone, a shady figure, tries to get him out of the way. Tintin escapes and accompanies Professor Sarcophagus to the tomb of Kiosk. They indeed find it, but it turns out that the tomb is just a cover for a band of smugglers. Tintin travels across the Red Sea to Arabia and from there to India, where he is hot on the heels of the gang's boss. Hergé has found his form. You can tell that from the story very clearly. It is no longer episodic, but follows a continuous arc to its climax. In addition, Hergé had built up an archive with pictures from all the areas where Tintin travels. The pictures therefore reflect the local colorate very well. And there's another talent of Hergé that we see in this story, recognizing the potential of characters. In the story, there's a total of 4 people who would accompany Tintin from now on his adventures. The first two are Thompson and Thompson, original Dupont et Dupont. They are called X33 and X33A in the first black and white version of the story. They are the policemen who want to arrest Tintin in the beginning of the story, but in the process they become valuable allies. Hergé recognized the humorous potential of the strange pair of twins, and he continued to expand it. Hergé created him after his father and his uncle, who were twins themselves and confused people by wearing the same outfit all the time. The next addition to Tintin's family is the eloquent Portuguese trader Oliveira de Figueira. Although Tintin tries to avoid it, Oliveira de Figueira is a person who can sell anybody anything, and even Tintin buys a lot of stuff he doesn't need. Oliveira will show up in further adventures whenever Tintin is in the Far East and in need. And finally, Hergé introduces a man whose role is not yet clear at the beginning, even though he himself is the boss of a movie company. The name is Roberto Rastapopoulos. It follows a well-known tradition of storytelling, the arch-nemesis. Sherlock Holmes had Professor Moriarty, and Tintin has Rastapopoulos. But their relationship was only at the beginning at this point. A few other things, however, have been added later in the color editing of the adventure. In this new version, the captain of the smuggler ship that picks up Tintin, Snowy and Professor Sarcophagus locked into sarcophagi is none other than Thompson, Alan Thompson, who will be Captain Haddock's treacherous first officer in a later adventure. The crab with the golden claws. So far so good, but there's a downright heavy anachronism in a scene which a sheikh is thrilled with Tintin's present and happily declares that he's reading every adventure, and then presents him a Tintin comic, Destination Moon. And Destination Moon was published 20 years after Cigars of the Pharaoh. So we see George Lucas is not the first one who corrected and adapted his work after a long time. The occasional reader who does not know the original edition will probably not noticing it, except that the cover of Destination Moon does not fit into the story. But the scene with the adding of Alan Thompson, for example, helps it to make the universe of Tintin more coherent. Other changes removed story elements that related very strongly to the 1930s, so this could become more of a timeless classic. And finally, the story finds an end point, and in contrast to the later double volumes that had a cliffhanger in the middle of the story and a reference to the sequel, this was not in every version of this comic. For example, the German version has no indication that there's a continuation in The Blue Lotus. It just says the end and that's it. Cigars of the Pharaoh is an exciting adventure which, as Rastapopoulos states in the story itself, is a pure film story. It has atmosphere and it captures the scenes very well. And Hergé was capable of further increases, as he will prove in the next volume.